Hey everyone. So for this lesson I wanted to talk about basic chords. This is the very most basic, your open chords. I have a chart of them on the website, but I figured I'd go over a few things about them. First and foremost, when you're playing the chords, especially the open ones, and you're down here in the open position, you have to be really careful when you place your fingers on chords. If you start to lay your fingers down and you don't have them pressed onto the appropriate strings, you end up muting out strings that you don't want to mute out. So I'm going to go through with you what's on the chart as far as the very most basic open chords, the major chords, and then I'll show you the fingerings that I like to use for them. Okay, so I'm just going to play them through like they were in the chart. Okay, starting with the C chord. So this is a C. This is a D. This is an E. This is an F. This is a G. This is an A. And then this is a B. Okay, so now I'm just going to go over the fingerings on these chords. And again, like I said, you want to make sure you're pressing down firmly on the appropriate frets with your fingers at the appropriate spot, and you don't want to lay your fingers down. So here we go. First things first. We're going to start with the C chord. Now the C chord, okay, I like to take my first finger and on my B string on the first fret with my first finger. Then I take my middle finger and my ring finger. My middle finger goes on the D string on the second fret, and my ring finger goes on the A string on the third fret. And that gives us our C chord. Okay, and with a lot going on there, you can see if you're laying your fingers down and they aren't on the strings properly, you may get something like that. So you got to make sure you really have your fingers where they're supposed to be. Okay, so that was a C. Now we're going to do the D. For the D chord, I take on the E string on the second fret, I put my middle finger. My first finger, I go into the G string on the second fret with my first finger, and then on the third fret with my ring finger, I do the B string. So that's our D. E, an E chord, I take my first finger, put it on the G string on the first fret, and then I take my middle and my ring finger and I put them on the A and the D string on the second fret. So that gives us our E chord. Now an F is similar to an E in the respect that it has the same fingering pattern, except instead of being down in the open, it ends up moving one fret up, and we bar entirely across the first fret. Okay, so you take your first finger on the first fret and bar completely across. Then I take what now is my middle finger, my ring finger, and my pinky finger. My ring finger or my middle finger I put on the G string on the second fret, and then we need to cover the A and the D string on the third fret, and for those I use my ring finger and pinky finger, and that gives us our F chord. Now G. Our G chord, I take my pinky and ring finger and on the E and the B string on the third fret, okay, and then we skip all the way down to the low E and the A string, and I use my first finger and my middle finger. First finger, I go to the second fret on the A string, and then my middle finger I put on the third fret on the E string. So that ends up giving us our G. Then we go to A. The A chord is on the second fret. We leave everything else open and we push in on the D, G, and B string all on the second fret. So it sounds like this. And again, this is where you got to be careful, because if you end up covering your A string, that doesn't come out right. So what I do is I take my first finger and I put it on the A, the D, and the G string, on the second fret, and then I take my middle finger and kind of put it on the B string on the second fret. Okay, now the B chord is pretty much just like the F chord was in relation to the G. It's the same fingering as the A chord except one fret up. So we bar entirely across our very first fret, and then on the third fret we cover our D, G, and B string. So it's going to sound like this. And this one I bar entirely across with my first finger on the first fret, and then I take my ring finger and bar across the D, G, and B strings on the third fret. So you get this. So again, I'll play them through one more time so you see kind of what they sound like. C, D, E, F, G, A, and then the B. So that's it for this lesson. I'm going to make others, obviously, about the different chords, scales, and I'm going to involve some techniques and everything. So please check out my website. It's up and running. It's www.davesguitarstudio.com. And so I hope you enjoy.